Thanks for joining the latest episode of Link by Golf. I'm your host, Ross McGuire, and this week I'm joined by Wallace Booth, an incredibly talented golfer from Scotland, whose life journey as we go through this podcast will truly blow you away. I really enjoyed catching up with Wallace and hearing about his story and everything he's been through. His determination to succeed and be successful in his life is really incredible, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Let's get over to the show. Wallace, great to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How about yourself?
Fantastic, and thanks for joining. It's brilliant. So to kick this off, Wallace, what I've been asking all the guests that have been on so far is to talk about where they were born and brought up, and then how they got into golf. So if you could start with that, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, no problem. I started golf when I was 7, about to turn 8. My mum and dad had a family friend, Bob Strachan, who was the head professional at Duff House Royal for a long time. And he'd come down to visit when I was born. And just as he was leaving, just kind of said, when Wallace is old enough, I'll give him his first set of clubs. So we went up to visit. My dad had taken me up to visit him when I was 7. And true to his word, I came back with a set of golf clubs. So that wasn't the intention going up there, just to visit and say hi. But I came back with a set of golf clubs, and yeah, I was hooked. My dad, and he enjoyed watching the golf on TV, but he wasn't a golfer. So yeah, that's kind of how it all transpired.
The thing that's interesting, I'm going to jump into this early, is golf isn't the only thing that you're basically famous for when you're younger. So if I recall correctly, you liked your wrestling. So do you want to talk a little bit about that, and then we'll circle back to the golf?
My dad, he won a silver medal at the Commonwealth Games in 1966 in Jamaica, and for wrestling. And I was brought up. My dad had built a gym on the farm in Comrie where we are, and he trained a bunch of guys. And since I could walk, I was in the gym. And yeah, I would say wrestling was probably my first love. And
you achieved quite a lot in wrestling as well, Wallace. What were some of the things you were doing there in terms of yourself?
Well, I won I finished off winning the British under-18s weight class. I couldn't tell you. I think maybe 70 kilo. So I finished with that, but then after that, I headed off to university and the wrestling stopped. But up until 18, I wrestled and played squash as well.
Brilliant. So just taking us back then, so you're 7 when you start playing. Where did you play? Which course were you at? And what was it like when what are your memories of playing at that time and through to sort of age of 13, 14?
I started playing at Comrie, 9-hole course. I was lucky. It was at a time where the junior convener, his 2 sons were, I want to say maybe 17 and 15. He had been running the junior section, and they'd built it up quite a substantial amount of juniors when I joined and started playing. And so for me, it was very lucky, because since I moved away from junior golf, the juniors at Comrie have been much less, and there's not been that much. So I just think it was a lucky and a perfect time for me, just with the circumstances with how many people were playing at Comrie. And then when I was old enough, I think it was 12, I joined Creef as well. I wasn't allowed to join it before that, because there was a rule that if you didn't have a parent that was a member, you couldn't join until you were 12.
And that's Creef, the course that's right in the middle of the town next to the hotel, is that correct?
Yes, yeah. They were the 2 courses I grew up playing. Vastly different. Comrie's kind of shorter, tighter course. Creef's a lot more open and longer. So it was kind of the best of both worlds.
And so you joined Creef at 12. What kind of age were you starting to notice the difference between you and maybe some of your friends in terms of your capability?
Well, when I was 11, I got my handicap down so the junior competitions at Comrie were just 9 holes. So when I was 11, I got my handicap down to 6 for 9 holes. That then allowed me to join the men's medals, so play in the competition. So obviously then when I did that, I obviously played 3 rounds, as you do, or as you did back then, to gain a proper adult handicap as opposed to a junior 9-hole handicap. And I shot 70, I think I shot 78, 77, 79. So that put my handicap up at 7, par 70, standard scratch 70. So put my handicap at 7 which obviously was quite a bit better than
when you were
6 or
11.
9 holes off. Yeah, when I was off. Yeah, so it was quite a jump. And then a couple of weeks after that, I played in the Craigie Hill Junior Open, and I was only going to play 9 holes. And one of the guys in the pro shops, young lad who had already played, and he was doing some work in the pro shop, he and the other pro kind of convinced me to play 18 holes rather than 9. And I ended up having not the best of starts. I think I was 4 over par after 7, and then I had a hole in one at the 8th hole, and it seemed to just so it seemed to just energize me and fire me up. And I ended up picking up another birdie along the way in all par, and I got to 18. And from the middle of the fairway, I ended up making a mess of it and made double bogey and shot. Craigie Hill is a par 66, so shot 69. So obviously broke 70 2 weeks before I was 12, and ended up winning the under 18s category as opposed to the under 12s, which was going to be the 9 hole that I was going to play in. And funnily enough, the guy that finished second to me was the one that convinced me to play in the 18 hole Open. So I was very lucky in that respect. Probably more so lucky that I played with a guy who was a member of Craigie Hill. He was 17 and he was the county junior captain, because obviously an 11-year-old shooting 69 might not have been believed had I not been playing with somebody of that note and caliber. So
that's an incredible score.
It just worked out. I suppose it worked out the way it was meant to be. Yeah, I obviously surprised myself. So that got me down to, I think, 6.7 before I was 12.
And so you moved to Crieff, and I'm just going to assume that not just that score, but clearly being off that type of handicap must have opened up doors right away and beyond just club golf. So was there county things coming up, or was it just club golf for the next couple of years?
No, I got picked for the under-18s county boys team at 12. I can't remember off the top of my head whether it was later on that season after that, or it was at the start of the next golf season. I can't remember, but I remember being 12. And I actually played, the first match I played against George Murray, who you probably have heard of or know, who was a pro on the European Tour for a while. So that was my first game, and he absolutely cuffed me. So it was a bit of a wake-up call and a welcome to a slightly higher level than junior club.
Bearing in mind you're only 12, though.
Yeah, well, George was only 14. He was only 14 at the time. So yeah, so it was it was a good experience. And so
you're getting into county golf then, and I'm assuming from there you're straight into national events, or again, was that something you sort of waited for? What kind of things were you doing around that age, Wallace?
Well, so the following year after this, getting my men's handicap and shooting 69 at Craigie Hill, I entered the Scottish boys at Mercer. And at that time, I think I was the youngest to compete. I was 12, so
my goodness,
it was and that was, I suppose, as you go along, you have learning curves, and that was another learning curve for me. But great experience, and obviously enjoyed it up at Mercer. It was I think I was 6 down after 10 in the first round, and ended up getting beaten the last. So I gave a good effort to get back into it. Not quite enough to progress.
It's a great experience at such a young age to, well, first of all, start playing, and then coming back like that is awesome for your confidence going forward. It must have been really nice.
Absolutely. It's as I'm sure you know, it takes a long time to build confidence in golf, and it takes 2 seconds to shatter it. So it was nice to at least have that comeback, and so that I didn't really feel like I went up there and had a heavy defeat. And that could obviously, at 12 years old, that could probably dent the confidence and the belief, etc. So it was nice to feel a bit of positivity coming away from there, even though I lost the match. I felt like it was a good experience and a good showing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm just assuming here, and this is, I mean, it's phenomenal, Wallace, what you're doing at such a young age, but I'm guessing from there, as well as playing club golf, county golf, the focus must have been all around getting to some of these national events. So what kind of things were you then playing in as you got older?
Well, they didn't have any of the junior tour stuff they've had in recent years, but just playing in junior opens, obviously the Scottish under 14s, under 16s, under 18s, and obviously county championships, etc. So just, I suppose, anything that was available. A lot of junior opens in obviously different areas, different county areas. So there was obviously plenty of events back then, and lots of things happening.
And was there any results that stood out for you in those years?
Obviously, the Craigie Hill Open was, I suppose, if somebody wanted to pinpoint when I wanted to become a professional, that was probably the time when I was like, that's what I want to do. I won the Scottish under-14s at London Link. I can't remember the year now, but I won it, but not on the day. The person that won it on the day the person that won it on the day had put the wrong age down, so he was actually,
oh my goodness,
he was like a year older, so he was in the under-16s category. Obviously, the under-14s at that time was the trophy for the under-14s was basically the best placed player within the under-16s Scottish event. So it wasn't like just under-14s. So
yeah,
and they'd made a mistake with his birthday. And so 2 months later, or a month later, I think I got a call when it was found out saying that I'd actually won it, because I'd finished second, obviously. Yeah.
And I hope they gave you the trophy at next year's event to make it feel.
No, they presented it to me actually at Treath Golf Club by Hugh Campbell at the time, who was the RNA, I believe he was the RNA captain at that point, I think.
Brilliant. That's really nice.
So yeah, so it was nice, but obviously because it wasn't done at the time, it didn't really feel the same as it would have done had it been at the time. But the following year, Scottish under-16s was at Herzl, and I managed to win it. So it was obviously but I won it by 9 shots.
Starting to see a pattern developing here, Wallace. The under-14s, under-16s.
So under-14s, under-16s. Best I finished was second in the under-18 stroke play to Scott Jameson the following year after that. And then I finished, I think, third and fifth the 2 subsequent years that I was still eligible. So I never got my hands on that, and I never got past the 5th round of the under-18s Scottish match play. So I didn't get my hands on either of them, and I got beat by Rhys Davis in the semi-finals of the British boys. So I got closer to winning that than I did the Scottish boys match play.
And so Rhys Davis, was that the guy that went to the Celtic Manor Ryder Cup? Was he the one that was the HUD carrier for the week, as we would call it, along with Monty?
I think so, yeah. I think they were prepping him because he was obviously looking like he'll be a future Ryder Cupper. So, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So I
played GBI boys with Rhys.
And that provides a perfect intro into looking at playing for national teams. So I'm assuming the Scottish squad came along at that time, and you've just talked about GB&I, but what was that like for you, and when did you start playing for Scotland?
So I got my first cap for the under-18s. I think I played in a couple of under-16s training matches, but the under-18s, I got my first cap at Portmarnock, and I was 15 once the event started, but the call-up was when I was 14, so it was a confidence boost. But that was, I suppose that must have been on the back of winning the under-16s.
You must be one of the youngest guys ever to play for under-18s at that age.
I think at the time, yes, but then I think Zach Gould, who played for Wales a few years later, was like 12 years old, so he obviously surpassed that quite comfortably. But I think at the time I was one of the youngest.
And so you were playing like home internationals and those kinds of things as well?
Yeah, so the boys home internationals, and then I got my first Scotland men's cap at 17. We played a friendly match against France, so I got my first cap then. And
that, Wallace, is that around the time that you got the opportunity to go to Augusta State, or was that later on?
No, that was at the, I think the March, April time was my first cap, and then I went to Augusta State in the August of 2003.
Right.
So I went out to Augusta to play golf in the States on a golf scholarship. So.
And so what was the process to join the uni? Were you applying for unis? Were people coming to you? And then what was the experience like?
So I didn't really know much about it, to be honest. I knew David Ingalls, and he was at Tulsa. So I'd spoken to them, and then also, but Augusta State came around because I wasn't really getting anywhere. I didn't know enough about it, to be perfectly honest.
Right.
And then a good friend of mine, Neil McRae, who I ended up playing in the Scotland men's team with, I'd played with him in when I started playing the 72-hole men's opens. I think I was around about 15. I ended up playing with him in the last 2 rounds of the North of Scotland, and we got on really well. He's obviously, I'm trying to think, he's maybe 12, 13 years older than me, maybe, but we got on really well, and kept in touch. And he was quite, I suppose, a bit of a mentor for me. And then when I just happened to be speaking to him around about Christmas time, and he actually went to Augusta State in the early 90s, which I didn't know.
Right.
And we were just chatting, and he was asking what's going on, and I was like, "Oh, I'm speaking to Tulsa, but I'm not really getting in." He goes, "Well, I'll email the coach at Augusta State for you, and just you kind of see where it goes." And he did, and the coach got in touch with me really quickly and offered me, a scholarship, and I accepted, and it literally happened that quick. From feeling like I had no clue of what was going to happen to within 2 weeks, I was heading off later that year to Augusta to a whole new world.
And what was the experience at Augusta State like for you in terms of the campus and the time there?
It was amazing. I always say I would happily do it over again. It was great. The only, I suppose, now knowing more about it than I did when I first went out there, it would have been maybe nice to go to. Augusta State was fantastic, and I loved every minute of it. But it's quite it's a Division II school, but with a Division I golf program.
Right.
But it's quite a small school. So whereas I would have loved to have gone to a bigger university that had an American football team, because I did, in my final year, I did go down to Ole Miss. Not my final year, sorry, my third year? It was my third year or final year. Went down to Ole Miss to visit Callum Macaulay, and that it was just completely different.
Right.
Massive. We went to college games, just a whole new experience for me, and just so I think if I could do it again, I would have loved to have seen that aspect of university in the States. But I loved every minute of it in Augusta, so I have no complaints and made some lifelong friends. So
yeah, and there's a very obvious question I do need to ask you. Have you ever played Augusta National?
Yeah, 4 times.
Oh, wow. The Masters coming up as well.
Yeah, very lucky. And I had a friend who I went to my freshman year, so my first year out at uni. We always had our spring break was always the same week as Masters week, because obviously it was a good excuse to get people out of Augusta, because for 51 weeks of the year it's a pretty quiet, not much happening. Well, you could say town, but it's a city, but it's quite widespread, so it doesn't feel that it doesn't have the same kind of city vibe as a lot of cities. But that 1 week a year for Masters week, it's just crazy. Literally, so many people coming into the town. So it's spring break. But I just stayed in Augusta during spring break, and I had a friend whose family had, tickets every day to the Masters. So I got to go every day the first year, but I suppose it was a bit of a burnout because I went every day. So we would go. One of the perks, I suppose, of playing or being on the golf team at Augusta was our home tournament that we hosted was always the weekend before the Masters. And on the Monday after the tournament, we would always, all the players that took part in our home tournament from all the teams would get a ticket for the Monday practice round. So it was pretty cool getting to go out and just seeing the place. It's like nowhere else on earth. I mean, you laugh, but anybody that is going that tells me, I say, well, I guarantee you'll walk in there and you'll crouch down and rub the grass, because it does not look real.
Testing if it's AstroTurf.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's just so unique, but what a place.
And we haven't even talked, I mean, you were there for 4 years, Wallace, so what were some of your results like at college?
To be honest, I really struggled. So I got my, obviously, first cap for the Scotland men's team at 17, and then I didn't get selected again until I think the home internationals after my third, so the kind of end of the summer after my third year at uni. So there was a 3-year gap where I lost my game a lot.
Right.
Didn't play. First year I didn't play. I played a little bit for the team. Second year, I think I maybe played 1 or 2 events. I really had a bad that I suppose it was almost like a crisis with my golf game the second year, and then seemed to turn it around. A good friend of mine who is like a father figure to me, that was one of Neil McRae's friends, and who Neil had asked to kind of just keep an eye on me when I first went out there to make sure I was okay and settle. And he kind of put his arm around me and has been like a second dad since then. He looked up a golf coach in Atlanta and took me to see him, just to try and help, because the game was in such bad shape, and it turned it around. So I had a much better third year, and then really quite a good summer at home, hence getting picked for the home internationals, and then actually won the Hootie at Bulls Bay collegiate event in my senior year. So I did manage to win one of the college events during my time, and I'm pretty sure, I'd have to look back and see, but I'm pretty sure Webb Simpson finished second and Dustin Johnson finished fifth in
decent fields, Wallace.
So
struggling for playing partners as well.
Well, I was going to say I didn't quite go on to have the careers they have, but I've always got that as a memory, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
wow.
that was
what a memory that is.
Yeah, it's a good way to look back on it.
Yeah, and then where did it go from there with respect to Scotland? Because I know that you played in the Eisenhower Trophy. So how did that timeline go from being in those years at college and then playing Scotland and playing in the Eisenhower?
So I finished up uni, graduated in 2007, and then I decided to say I was going to play 2 years amateur golf. And I suppose the main aim with that was to make the Walker Cup team in 2009.
Of course.
Before I'd think about turning pro, because like I said, I did struggle with my game for a big chunk of university, but it was, on the upturn, playing much better coming out of university. So I thought, right, I'll give it a couple of years, play all the events. And so I had a decent summer 2007. I should go back and say, I think it was 2007 I played the home international. So it was a 4-year, it was after uni. So it was 4 years of uni that I did not get back in the Scotland men's team, which shows you kind of where my golf game went. But so I had a good summer and played. And in 2008, I had a really good year. And then obviously we got selected for the Eisenhower, and myself, Callum and Gav obviously went down there feeling good about things, and obviously had a really good week between us.
And that was that in Australia that you guys went to?
Yes, so it was Royal Adelaide and the Grange were the two golf courses that it was held at. We had gone down in the February. There was a squad of us went down in the February as a kind of warm weather training / practice for the Eisenhower, and played a couple of events down there. The Scottish Golf always sent a couple of players down to Australia for a couple of months to play a few of the events.
Yeah.
But because the Eisenhower was down there that year, they decided they would take a squad that they felt would be the people that would be competing to make the team. And so we went down and had a good practice for a couple of weeks, and then obviously got picked for the team and went back down in October of 2008.
Fantastic. So, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And so then the tournament week itself, what are your memories of playing that week, and what are the sort of highlights that jump out at you?
I don't know. I just we all felt really good, and we all felt quietly confident, and we obviously took care of business, as they say. But yeah, I just remember how good Ian Ray was there, Spencer Henderson, Alistair Lowe, Hamish Gray. Everybody was there, and it was just a great week.
Was there any sort of rounds that stood out for you, or even from the other guys? What kind of rounds were standing out, or shots or holes that really brought the tournament to life for you?
Really, I just remember it as being a great week from start to finish. Not really having an individual moment that stands out. Just more a great feeling of the whole week. It was just really. It's really good. We had before the Eisenhower, we were in Sydney for a week before that. Just obviously acclimatizing. At the time, Aberdeen Asset was sponsoring the Scottish Golf Union, so we had a corporate day with them, and we had a great week of kind of practice, acclimatizing, and it just helped put us all at ease and really ready to get going that following week. And Adelaide, and so I just think the whole trip was special. So it wasn't, I couldn't pinpoint one moment. I would just say that it's all, when I look back, the whole week the whole 2 weeks that we were down there from start to finish was superb, and obviously couldn't have gone any better.
And was that one of the first years that Scotland sent its own team versus it being GB&I as well?
Yeah, so I believe it was 2000 that they split them up. So it was always GB&I up to that point. And I think 2000 was the first year the Eisenhower then became, the Four Nations had their own teams in, and we were obviously, as Scotland, we were the first home nations team to win it. GB&I had won it before, but we were the first win it since the split to win it. So that was another nice accolade as well.
Yeah, fantastic. What a win that was. And so from there, Wallace, so that would have been October 2008, you said. You then,
yes.
In 2009, you turned professional. What was the decision-making process there, and what type of events did you start with?
So, well, after the once Eisenhower finished, I actually went to tour school, got through stage 1, but then missed it at stage 2. So at that point, I thought, well, it's, my goal when I finished uni was to try and make the Walker Cup team. So I thought, well, I'm in a good position off the back of the Eisenhower. I'll stay amateur one more year, and that would be my main goal, to try and play Walker Cup. So obviously I had a couple of decent results early on. I think I finished third at the Living Trophy, and then second at the Irish Open, Amateur Open. But then kind of my game left me a little bit, and then it came to the European Team Championships in July of 2009, and we kind of had a tough first day, and then the second day I managed to shoot 66, and we qualified 8th, so last in the top flight. So that gave me a bit of confidence, because obviously that really helped out the team that day. And
yeah, of course.
Then obviously qualified 8th, and then we went on to win it. So
oh my goodness,
we held the world and the Europeans, which was obviously quite nice.
And
but I think that
very
saved
humble,
me to be
very humble,
well,
Wallace. But I think you don't shoot 66. You're not. You guys are not playing in that setup in the match play, right?
No, but I think I almost think that round saved my selection in the Walker Cup, because obviously from the Eisenhower at the end of 2008, myself, Callum went on to get his tour card for the European Tour, so he turned pro, which was fantastic. Gav and I did not, so we stayed amateur. So really, for the two of us, I felt like we would have to play ourselves out of selection for the Walker Cup the following year, given off the back of our performance, I suppose, in the run-up to the Eisenhower, and then obviously the Eisenhower.
Yeah, because you're both part of the world and European champions back to back.
Yeah, so I obviously had those couple of decent results at the start. Gav actually won the Irish Amateur. We had a good tussle in that last round, and I finished second to him. So that obviously cemented his place. And then I kind of lost my game a little bit, but then obviously that round saved my bacon, I would say. And then, so thankfully I got knocked out in the first round of the Scottish Amateur after the European Team Championship win. I think it was a couple of weeks later, and I got knocked out. So obviously it was a very nervy wait the rest of that week to find out if I was getting a call. But luckily I got a call, which was obviously fantastic. And so we played the Walker Cup at Merion in the States, and the scoreline, we got an absolute pummeling, but a lot of the matches went down the last and went the US's way. So it was, I feel like it was a bit closer than what the scoreline actually suggested. But amazing experience. I mean,
who were some of the guys you were playing against and with in that one for the Walker Cup then?
So the Eisenhower for America was Ricky Fowler, Billy Horsell, and Jamie Lovemark. But then
decent team.
Of them, decent team, very decent team. They all turned pro after that. So the team for the Americans side, the American side had Morgan Hoffman, Cameron Tringali, Brian Harmon.
Yep. It's a decent player.
Yeah, Peter Uline.
Wow.
Yeah, so they had a pretty strong team. who's in our team. We had Tommy Fleetwood, who obviously has gone on to do fantastic. Chris Paisley, Sam Hutsby.
Chris Paisley won a couple of tournaments on tour as well, didn't
and
he?
Dale Whitnell as well, because Dale's obviously won on tour not that long ago.
Yeah.
So so a few of the guys have done really well.
Wow.
So that was that. Then obviously went to tour school after that. And I went to first stage, but I accepted an invite into the Alfred Dunhill links at, the event they have at St Andrews, Kingsbarns and Carnoustie.
Yeah.
You can I accepted an invite, so technically that means I turned pro. Got through first stage of tour school and then played at Dunhill, made the cut, which was great. And my first official shot as a professional was off the first tee at St Andrews, and my playing partner was Paul Laurie. So it doesn't get much better than that for a guy from Scotland. So it was pretty special.
What way to turn professional at the home of golf? I bet not many people can say that.
Yeah. So it was it was a nice feeling, really good. And then so I would go back. Normally I would go back to this Augusta in the winter for a couple of months to do some practice in the off season. So I did that, and then I came back out and I had some invites on the Challenge Tour because I didn't get through second stage of tour school. So I didn't have any status on Challenge Tour, or obviously on the main tour. But I had some invites lined up on Challenge Tour, and I had my Europro card as well. But right as I was starting, I played a Challenge Tour event in Turkey at the end of April of 2010, and I missed the cut. But I was in a lot of pain with my left shoulder. It had been giving me problems for a few years, but to the point that I couldn't actually hold the golf club. It was so sore.
My goodness.
So obviously flew home, and then I went to see obviously a shoulder surgeon to get an opinion, and the guy I went to see just said I had some tendonitis, gave me an injection, sent me on my way. But I had another one booked in through the NHS, obviously, so I didn't cancel it because I wanted to see how. I went privately for the first one. I wanted to see how the shoulder was after the injection. So it was about, I think, 4 or 6 weeks later, I went to see this other surgeon who'd actually operated on my dad. So I went to see him. He sent me for a scan, gave me another injection, and got the results of the scan, said everything looked that was good. So I spent, I think, 3 or 4 months. Well, what was it? April. So May, June, July, August. So 4 months, 4.5 months, not doing anything. And then obviously September rolls by and it's tour school time. So I'd been checked out. Shoulder seemed okay. So I went, right, okay, well, I'll go for it. So I had 4 or 5 days practice, really, from not playing anything for 4 months because of the shoulder. And then went to first stage at Dundonald and ended up winning first stage.
What?
I got a bit lucky with the draw because I think I was out late. Yeah, I was out late the first day, but it got postponed because the wind got so strong. And then, so I didn't start obviously till the second morning. And yeah, ended up winning first stage from having not played for 4.5 months basically. And
That's
then
incredible.
So I did that, went to second stage, didn't get through again, and went back to the States to do some practice. And within the first week, again, couldn't hold a club. Shoulder was killing me.
Oh dear.
So I had 6 weeks of intense physio out there, and after 6 weeks, the physio, because it wasn't getting, because I didn't play golf for 6 weeks, and then the physio was like, right, go try home and get another opinion. I think you might have a labral tear. Now, nobody had ever mentioned a labral tear to me, so I was like, oh right, okay, don't even know what that is, but yeah, sure. So I went back, and my cousin's wife is a physio, and she had recommended a surgeon down in Manchester to me the year before, when I had obviously seen those 2 other surgeons. I was like, no, I'm fine, cancer, whatever. So when I came back, I called her and she set it up. So I went to see Mr. Funk, is his name, and he's regarded probably the best in Europe, shoulder surgeon wise. And I went to see him, and I brought my scan from the year before, and he put it in the computer, and he goes, "There's your labral tear," and it was big, it wasn't small. So they'd missed it the year before. So it's been a year, obviously, since it was basically a year. It was just, I think it was just over a year from, or just under a year from when I had that scan. So they'd missed it, and albeit the tear was in the back of the shoulder, I was complaining about pain in the front, but obviously sometimes pain doesn't actually happen where the problem is it gets referred elsewhere.
Yeah.
So I saw him on a Wednesday. He sent me for another scan on the Friday, because obviously it's going to be worse than what it was in that scan, because I'd been playing. Friday, operated on the Monday.
Oh dear, that's awful. The speed that you swing at, that is so awful.
Yeah, so it just
a year.
Yeah, well, it was a year of obviously thinking out there wasn't an issue, and it could have been addressed then rather than a year later. But yeah, so I saw him on the Wednesday, operated on the Monday, and that was me for 9 months rehabbing,
Goodness.
working back to play again. So eventually rehabbed, got back, and then I played my first event back in April 2012. So that was literally a year later from when I had the operation. And so I'd basically turned pro at September 2009, and I think I'd maybe played like 8 or 9 events when I came back in 2012. So it wasn't a very good start to my professional career, and obviously I felt like I was playing massive catch up on everybody else.
Yeah, and I mean that.
But that.
I was going to say that must have been so hard. How did you keep your motivation during all? That's a long time to be impacted by injuries, and what was your process to keep yourself going, basically?
I don't know. I've obviously, like I said, from the age of 11, from after that round at Craigiehill, I just all I wanted to do was be a professional golfer. So that kept me going, and luckily I hit the ground running when I came back and ended up finishing 5th in the Order of Merit, the Europro Order of Merit. So that got me into the Challenge Tour.
Brilliant.
For 2013, and then I played Challenge Tour 13, 14, 15, into 16, and then didn't play well in 16, struggled in 16. I had when I say I had a good season, I had my best season on Challenge Tour, kept my card, so that allowed, obviously, go into 2016 with planning my schedule, which was nice, but it didn't work out, obviously, the way I would want to. And then some good work over the winter of 2016, 2017, and I went down to Portugal at the start of 2017 and played some of I think it's the Pro Tour, forgive me for not remembering the name, down in Portugal, and ended up winning one of them, which was obviously a massive confidence boost and a bit of a G up from obviously the game slumping a little bit in 2016 to then coming back and winning 2017. So that was a real positive. And then all my results were looking really good. That was in the January, so February, March, April, we were all progressing. And if you looked at my results, it was all on an upper level, feeling good. And then I started to feel my shoulder again in the May of 2017, and it didn't feel right. And I suppose when you go through the shoulder operation that I did, and then I suppose the year of knowing something was up, but being told that it was fine, as soon as I felt that pain, I knew it was something more than just I've tweaked something. Or anyway, so then if you look at my results for the rest of the year, you could see, if you looked at my results the whole of 2017, you could actually pinpoint when you would be like, that must be when your shoulder started hurting. Because I think I went into protective mode and, kind of held back from being freewheeling, because I was obviously subconsciously protecting my shoulder. I didn't feel like I was, but obviously subconsciously I would have been. I can only obviously say that now looking back, as opposed to at the time. Anyway, so I had an injection again in the summer, and it helped a little bit. But again, like these injections, they only last a little while, and then if it's something serious, then the pain will come back, and it'll come back worse. So I ended up going back to see the surgeon that had done my original op at the end of 2017. And in fact, no, sorry, I went to see him in the summer because the pain was bad. And he did a scan and he said it all looked fine. But again, from what I've been told, my shoulder doesn't look like a normal shoulder because it's been operated on. So it's different. So he said it looked fine, but the pain wasn't going away. And then I ended up seeing this physio who is an expert in shoulders, but she also would go to shoulder conferences where surgeons and all that would be, and she would actually lecture to them about it. So she's incredibly good at what she does. And I went to see her because the physio that had rehabbed me the first op was stumped why I was still feeling pain. And so she sent me to this lady, Tanya, and Tanya had a look and did some stuff, and then managed to figure out what it was, and it said it was very, very rare. She's only seen it in her 30 years of doing it. She's only seen it like 7 times, I think. And I can't remember for the life of me what it's actually called. But basically, the nerve wasn't allowing the blood to, the nerve was stopping, like the muscle in the back of the shoulder was wasting away because the nerve wasn't getting there. And
oh my goodness.
What had happened is, she said that, so they went back and scanned me again. This time they put ink in and they could see there was a tear, but it hadn't actually torn where the stitches, the anchors were put in originally. It torn around the front, but it was a much bigger tear than the first time. So I obviously went back to the surgeon, and yeah, same story again. He operated on me. And this time he told me there's a good chance I would never play golf again. So at that point, I was obviously feeling, I was all, but I'm the kind of person that a bit stubborn like that. And if somebody says I can't do something, then I would obviously try my best to prove them wrong. So I guess I get that from my dad. But I had the operation, and then this time Tanya, the physio that had recognized what the problem was, she rehabbed me, and it was a completely different rehab program from my first time. First time, I'd always, obviously from growing up wrestling, I'd been in the gym, done a lot of weights.
Yeah.
And the first rehab was, I was doing some weight stuff quite early on, etc., where Tanya had me only do band stuff, like with bands, etc., and it was all pattern movements and building up the strength using bands as opposed to throwing weights around. So it was a much different approach. And yeah, I love the rehab. I still do the rehab every day, but I made good progress with it. And then obviously in the meantime, I took the job of kind of head professional at Pitlochry because a friend of mine, Neil McGill, who owns Noah's Ark Golf Centre, he was asked to run the pro shop at Pitlochry. And because he didn't have the time to do it himself, and he couldn't send one of his assistants because he would have had to be there to oversee them a certain amount of time, but because I'd turned pro but not gone down the PGA route, I could run it for him. And so it worked out well for me because while I was rehabbing that, I got to do some coaching. It got me into the world of coaching and gave me a different aspect of golf and a different outlook towards it. So I did that for a year, obviously, because I'd always had the intention of going back to play. So I was there for a year and then started playing again. It was probably 18 months after, I think, after the operation, roughly. So it was a wee bit longer than the previous time. And I didn't play. I played a few Europro events at the end of 2019. Didn't play well, but I kind of obviously said to myself that I wasn't going to work that hard to get back to play golf, to not give myself a proper chance at playing again. So my plan was 2020, I would play a full season and then see where I was at, what I was going to do. And then obviously COVID hit.
What an amount of resilience you've got. It's incredible what you've been through. And to have that passion and energy for the game and want to be back every time, it's really admirable. It's incredible that you've got that energy and drive for what you want to do.
Yeah, no, I love golf. So
that's very obvious.
To get back. Yeah, so I was determined to get back, and so COVID hit, and I was like, what am I going to do then? Because I don't want to stand still. I don't like standing still. So I thought, what can I do in order to kind of progress, but still leave the door open so I can, once we figure out what's going on with COVID, etc., that I can actually give myself a proper chance at golf. And so I decided to go back to uni and do an MBA at Stirling because
fantastic.
I was contemplating at the time taking over my parents' farm because it was eventually going to be too much for them, and I thought, well, I love this place, and if I don't take it over, then they'll probably have to sell it, which I wouldn't have wanted. So I was contemplating that, and I thought, well, this kind of allows me a chance to get back to golf, gives me some time, but it also hopefully helps me progress with all the ideas I had for the farm and what I could do with it, etc. So I went back and did that, and the plan was, it was just 1 year. It was kind of an intense 1 year MBA course. And then in the summer, obviously you had to do your dissertation, and I thought, right, well, I'll do my dissertation and I'll get back into playing, because at that point, kind of COVID rules were obviously lifting a little bit. We could play golf, Paul Lawrie had his tour up and running, and I was like, I'd already played in a few events, but he had it, it was up and running, and I thought, well, I could play some of those events to ease back into it while I'm doing my dissertation, etc. So I played an event at Pollock, and then I went up to Aberdeen for the Scottish Par 3 Championships, and the first round I played, and after a few holes I started getting some nerve pain down my right side, and I was like, oh, maybe I just slipped on my neck or what have you. Anyway, so I played the round. I was quite a bit of discomfort, and then went back to. So my dad's was from Aberdeen, so we've got family friends up there, and I always stay with one of our friends. And obviously did all the kind of exercises, stretches to do it to try and ease it out and get rid of this kind of nerve pain. But it wasn't really going. Next morning, same thing. Got to the course, played. I got to the fourth tee and I couldn't actually swing the club back. The nerve pain was so bad, so I had to pull out, which I do not like doing. But I had to pull out, and I went down to see the physio, Stuart Barton in Anstruther, and went to see him. And he said, oh, you've got a bit of nerve damage, 10 days, should be okay. Well, I saw him on the Friday. I called him up on the Monday because I had not slept for 1 minute over the weekend because the pain was so bad. It was like sciatica, but like you couldn't get in a position to switch it off. It was just constant.
Right.
So I went back to see him, and I went back in and he took one look at me and he said, I'm calling the doctor. So it ended up calling the doctor. He sent me back, and I was on gabapentin for 6 months, which I think it's used to treat epilepsy, but it knocked me for 6. It was horrific. So I couldn't get off it quick enough. But it dulled the nerve pain. That's one of the things it does. So it managed. But at that point, I'm thinking, is this ever going to happen for me? Just one thing after another. So yeah. So obviously the nerve pain, and then I officially took over the farm, and I thought, well, I can do the farm and play some golf once I recover. But I realized very quickly, and you probably even gathered this from just our conversation today, is I don't really do anything at half effort. It's either 100% or I'm not interested.
Yeah.
So I realized within about a week of doing stuff around the farm that I was like, this is not going to happen. I've got all these ideas for the farm, and just, I suppose, I think I was at that point, there's only so many times I felt I could come back from a setback, and I was excited about, probably just from doing the MBA, and I was excited about the ideas and what maybe I could do with the farm to progress it, etc. I don't know, it wasn't like I decided that I wasn't going to play any more golf competitions or that. It was just a natural, got immersed in the farm. And to be honest, I haven't had a bad day. I haven't woke up, I haven't gone to sleep at night with a bad day, whereas obviously, as you know, playing golf yourself, you had a lot more bad days than good days. So it's been different. But to be honest, I think the last game of golf I had was August last year. I missed the practicing, I missed the grinding, but I haven't missed it. But that's probably because
I'm not surprised to hear that, Wallace,
with the
heartbreak you've gone through. I mean, that's really so tough with the talent that you've got. I've watched you in person playing golf, not played with you, but I've seen how you would be hitting the golf ball compared to a normal human being. And I mean, it was truly incredible to see you playing. So to hear you going through that time yourself, it's really amazing what you've gone through, and to have the positivity that you still carry about what you want to keep doing through the farm and the rest of your life. You've got so much in front of you. I think that's really incredible what you're.
Yeah, no, I mean, well,
into.
My fiance and I are expecting our first child May 1st.
Oh, brilliant! So congratulations.
That's obviously going to change my world. So I'm really excited about that. And also, a bit of a reality check is one of my best friends was diagnosed last year with MND. So seeing what he's going through now is, and to be honest, the last game of golf I had, he, one of his bucket list courses was Turnberry. So I managed to organise for us to go down with one of our other really good friends, and a member kindly took us round. So for me, at least, I feel like that's, the last time he wouldn't obviously be able to play golf now.
Yeah.
So for me, at least the last game of golf I had with him was, something that he's going to remember, and he really wanted to take it off his bucket list. So it it was nice in that sense.
Yeah, that's really nice that you're able
but
to
it
do
gives
that with them.
it gives you a bit of a reality check, and it makes you put everything in perspective. And what I've just told you I've gone through is nothing compared to obviously what he'll be going through. So yeah, one of those things. And
I was going to ask you other questions,
takes you.
Wallace, but I'm left just blown away by what you've gone through. You get so much talent, so much energy, so much drive, and to be, I guess the cards just sometimes don't fall in people's favour. That's it.
Yeah, I think the other thing is a big drive in my life with golf was my dad, and he sadly passed away last April, and so it's coming up a year in a couple of weeks. I think losing him, not having him like, oh, you should be out practicing, pushing me, not having that. I don't know. It just, I guess, I suppose everything happens for a reason, and I suppose life happens the way it's meant to happen. So I have no regrets, and I'm as happy as I've ever been right now. So
yeah, and you've got all these
it's all
great memories to build with your fiance and a baby coming as well. And it's amazing how in life, Wallace, one event that's so negative in many ways can then be followed by something that's so special, and life changes happen in between.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. So I tend to just accept most of it and make the best of it.
Yeah. Well, listen, look, I don't want to keep you any longer, but thanks so much for opening up like that about what you've been through. I'd genuinely no idea. I knew that you'd gone through some injury challenges, but not anything in depth like that. And for somebody, as I said, who's got the talent level that you possess, it must have been incredibly frustrating. So I admire, and I'm sure the people listening to this will just admire your spirit, your determination to keep going. And also they'll be delighted for you that with all those challenges you've gone through, you're in a phase of your life now with your family taking on the farm, and you've got a child on the way, that the future's very bright as well. There's lots to live for too, which is brilliant.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I was going to ask a final question, which was for anyone out there thinking about life as a professional, what advice would you have? But I think the question I'd like to ask you is, if people are going through challenges, what kind of things could they hang on to that can keep them being as motivated as you were to keep pursuing your dream?
It's hard to answer that, because I think a lot of my, I suppose, never give up kind of determination to not let setbacks stop me comes from my dad, and just, I suppose, how he was and how he brought me up wrestling wise. It was never let up, just keep going. So I suppose I took the lessons from that, and I suppose I apply it in all different aspects of life.
Yeah, well, that's very, very clear.
It's hard to answer that, but if your other question you were thinking of asking, I mean, I suppose for me, where I went maybe wrong, or could have done a lot better, would have been, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, which is never a good thing for golf, because obviously it'll never be perfect. You can only ever, as the saying goes, you can only ever strive for excellence, not perfection in golf. I think for me, I got a little bit bogged down at times in how the golf swing looked, as opposed to what was actually happening. Because there's been plenty of times one of the things I used to love doing the most was just going up to Comrie at night when it's quiet, nobody around, and practicing. And there was times I would go up there and I would hit shots, and I was like, I couldn't do anything to make that shot better. It was as good as I could get. But yet, if I'd put that swing on camera, I would have found a ton of faults. And I think for me, that's my biggest lesson, that things could have maybe panned out differently. Obviously, injuries have had an effect on me, but things could have panned out differently had I maybe just gone played and not worried about, not got caught up in this, maybe how it looks, rather than just get out there and hit the shots. And if you're hitting it well, then it doesn't matter how it looks, really, to be fair. No. But it's also obviously for consistency purposes. Obviously, the more technically better your swing is, the more chance you have of being consistent. But I do also think that a lot of it can be in your head too, because there's plenty of, as you know, there's plenty of incredible golfers in the world that have done incredibly well, and and they swing their swing.
Yeah.
And they've just full confidence in their swing, and that's half the battle. So
in the last episode, Wallace, I was talking to Sam Robertshaw, and he went through a journey himself, and it related a lot to getting caught up in worrying about what his swing looked like. Not necessarily from his perspective, but other people's, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that we can get caught up in the aesthetics rather than the performance of it. When ultimately all you're judged by as a professional golfer is how you perform.
I'm guilty of that myself, and that for me would be 100%. And yeah, so for me, that would be my biggest lesson. Because obviously you get the kind of normal standard answers to those kind of questions of what you need to do, etc. But I think for me that would be the standout piece of advice that I could give. If it, from my own experience, it happened to me when I got bogged down at times in the wrong things and forgot about actually, one, enjoying the game, and two, just going with what you've got.
Yeah, and I hope from this, Wallace, that someone does take the time to reach out to you, because you've got incredible experiences they can learn from. And I listened to a podcast with Gary Lineker. It's called The Rest is Football. Nothing to do with golf, of course. But I found it really interesting. Gary Lineker, I'm sure you know, one of the best goal scorers that I've ever seen in my lifetime. Not one professional player has ever reached out to him until very recently. And I think it was Patrick Bamford from Leeds basically pinged him on Instagram and was like, hey, can I speak to you? Isn't that crazy? Like, one of the best players our country's ever produced, and no one goes and asks them. So
yeah.
I'd be brilliant if someone spoke to you and they were able to get some of that guidance and maybe just steer the right path versus going down the rabbit holes that lots of people go down these days with the technical aspect of their game.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So just wrapping up here, Wallace, look, I'm so appreciative of you taking the time, and your story has really moved me.
It's been a pleasure.
It's incredible what you've been through, and still to have that energy and drive to keep going is brilliant, and you've got lots to look forward to. So one final piece, is there any social media handles or websites for your business that you want to share with the people who are listening?
Yeah, I've got Comrie Dog Park. That is the name of the handle on Instagram, and you'll find it on Facebook. But
brilliant.
Yeah, Comrie Dog Park, and then Lockview Farm is the other one. So they're the two handles I have, plus my own personal one. But I don't imagine I'll be posting that much in the next couple of months. Might have my hands tied.
You've got something else that's going to keep you very busy, and that's brilliant.
Exactly. Yeah, no, absolutely.
So listen, thanks a lot, Wallace. It's been great speaking to you, and hopefully we'll speak soon. I'd love to hear from you later in the year.
Yeah, absolutely. No, my pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers.
Well, everyone, what an incredible journey Wallace Booth has been on in his life. A truly talented guy, incredibly motivated, and his story was absolutely humbling for me. His motivation to succeed and continue with everything related to golf, despite all the challenges, is just unbelievable. I really enjoyed speaking to Wallace there. It genuinely touched me, and I'm sure it will have touched you as well. If you've got any feedback for the show, please send it to linkbygolf@yahoo.com, or you can catch me on Instagram at linkbygolf2024. There'll be a new episode out soon, and I look forward to sharing that with you. In the meantime, take care. Goodbye.